guess it doesn't matter. Hi, everybody. Our student panelists, come on up. Thank you for joining us today. Instead of using the podium, we were going to have four students, but we actually only have three today. So I think I'll go ahead and ask Sid just for the um, thank you. So the first thing that I'd like to do is I think everybody knows me. I'm Matthew Bloom. And Debbie just called me out like 2 minutes before. Um, So I think I'll just start and just start at the end and have you just introduce yourself and let us know, I guess, which college or colleges you're attending right now and maybe what your major or field of study is.
I don't know if this is on. Okay. I'm Sarah Lubers, and I'm currently taking one online class through Rio Salado College. I'm taking Bio 201. Um, I don't have a set major yet. It's kind of a return to school for me. I have a bachelor's degree in physics and worked in astrophysics research previously. And due to some health issues I've had to take some time off. So I really appreciate the low cost of Rio Salado and now with the OER resources to be able to just kind of keep my mind fresh until I'm ready to return to work or graduate school.
Thank you, Sarah. My name is Jakara Rogers, and I currently attend Rio Salado College. I'm actually a professional student, so when I originally came to Rio Salado, I actually flunked out because of the textbooks that you all mentioned. It just had a lot of information based off of me being, a professional and also, working and different things like that. So I actually decided to consider entrepreneurship and I was like, you know what? I'm going to do the hard things this year. So I decided to actually come back to Rio Salado and I'm actually majoring in business. I thought I was in accounting, but I was in business. So it's been working out the entire time. And so I can appreciate the more platform for Math 212 right now. I can appreciate that because that was the reason why I originally quit school because it was just a lot of fluff in the textbooks where I just couldn't really understand. So now I'm noticing that I'm actually having a much more successful semester because of the more platforms. So I just thought it would be ideal for me to come in here and speak with faculty about how you're helping out me as a student, but also my peers as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Jessica Parsons. I graduated from Paradise Valley Community College in May, which feels like a lifetime ago, but I graduated with a degree in theater, a certificate in stage combat, and a certificate in Adobe Foundations. At the same time, I also graduated with my bachelor's from Northern Arizona University in career and technical education. And right now I'm working on my master's in educational technology with NAU as well. I don't sleep. So it's a little bit of my background. But during my time as a student, I have used OER a lot. I've also had the opportunity to help with some development of OER as well. So I'm really glad to hear that you guys also had a really good experience with more because that was so life-changing for me.
Well, all right, thank you all. So the first question, I think we wanted to address the kind of textbook affordability question first, just to get that out of the way. We know so my general question is, how much does the cost of a course's learning materials factor into your decision whether or not to take the course or your perception of the course overall?
Yeah, so I will admit I probably know the least about OER here. When I got the email from my current professor about this panel, I had to Google OER. But I had noticed obviously that this semester, at least for the lecture part of my class, I didn't have to purchase a textbook. And I was like, how does that work? Um, and I wasn't sure what to expect in terms of quality, but the quality has been great. So, when you look at a class cost of, per credit, you're going, okay, this is affordable. And then you're going, okay, how much am I going to have to spend on the lecture textbook and the lag textbook, especially for science? Um, it almost doubles the cost. So yeah, it's been a huge help for me personally.
And so for me, it's super helpful. I have 3 children. And so I'm trying to wrap up my degree, and this math class, as you know, sometimes have more credits attached to it than the standard class. And so I thought that I would be able to just reuse the book from when I was last enrolled in school. But when I actually noticed that I didn't have to buy a textbook. It just made it be able for me to be able to do to complete 2 classes this semester instead of like stalling out the process of having to decide on if I'm going to, continue my education while also being a parent and also, being a business owner. So it's been super helpful for me.
I've chosen which classes I'm going to take based off of how expensive the textbook is. I think I've told this story before, but I wanted to take a geology class because my grandfather's very much into nature and I wanted to be able to relate to him that way. But the textbook was over $100 and I couldn't justify that. So I ended up taking astronomy instead, which is the class that led me to being an OER specialist. So maybe there are good things and bad things to that.
So the next question has to do with OER versus, well, I shouldn't say versus, but OER materials oftentimes are available digitally. And the question then sometimes arises, what do you feel is the need for print materials versus just having digital materials?
I will say that I was nervous about taking an online class and having e-resources. Having a physical book is really nice to just, you don't have to be connected to the internet or whatever. Um, I will also say that I have never gone back and look at a textbook that I've kept for, 15 years. It's like a comfort knowing it's there. So, but the advantage to ebooks in general, but I've noticed in OER as well, is being able to just search, not just like on the page, but the entire um, ebook, for a word or a phrase, or that's huge as opposed to paging through and looking through an index and that word's not in there. So what do I do? I think it's like there's way more advantages than disadvantages.
So for me, I actually do both. So I like the point that I'm able to just work on my MacBook and, figure it out if I have 2 screens. But I also like the fact that there is actually a reference book that we can actually print out at at the libraries and things for free. So I'm not missing out on anything because of the resources that I have here at Maricopa Community Colleges.
I would also say I kind of do both. Um, Especially if I'm taking a math course, having it printed out in front of me while I'm looking at the homework and being able to compare the two and watch the videos as I'm working on things is huge for me. I would also say the digital textbooks are helpful to me because I can do the same thing in AI that a lot of you were talking about. I can ask it, quiz me on this chapter. Can you help me to build flashcards? Can you help me to quiz myself and make sure that I'm really getting this material? And also, if things aren't clear, I can ask it to help clarify things. So for me, in that way, digital textbooks are a huge help.
Well, great. I think that that's something that we should all, I think that kind of confirms what we all probably already knew, which is that if students have the ability to print and they want that, then we should make sure that they have that availability. Um, so one thing then we want to talk about here is just in your perceptions, what are the main differences between the kind of traditional publisher textbooks that you may have encountered and the OER that you are using now in your classes?
So last semester I took Bio 156, and I think it was a Cengage book, perhaps. And the most helpful thing about that ebook was in the beginning of each chapter, it would have like a pre quiz, and it was optional, but I did it every time because something that I've noticed for myself is that when I'm reading new material, if there's a word I don't recognize, my brain shuts down. And so with science, that happens a lot. And if I'm checking like 2 words per sentence, like I'm not running through the material, I'm not really learning. So learning, especially vocabulary ahead of time, um, was super helpful because I was reading and I was recognizing the words, even if I didn't understand everything yet. And my professor this semester has done a really good job of doing pre-assessments too, pre-learning assessments, where I can take some quizzes an unlimited amount of times before starting to read the material. That's been a huge help rather than just diving in and getting lost and getting frustrated and being like, well, maybe I'll just do it tomorrow. So yeah, it's been huge.
So I would say what the biggest difference is for me is there's a lot of jargon in those publisher books. And I think someone actually said it on the panel before that they have to serve all. And so I like that the professors of the class, they specifically talk about what we need to be successful in that course. And so when I look at the videos and I look at the problems and just the system being compliant with my needs, it just all comes together in one form. Because as much as I care about a lot of people, I mostly care about my success right now and how is this course helping me right now. And so I just feel like the material, as far as the videos, just really puts things into perspective because sometimes things have to be caught, and what I mean by it has to be caught is that somebody has to tell you in order for you to understand, like, oh, this is exactly what they meant over you trying to read it or, different things like that. So I just really feel like this is a good platform for sure.
Agree with all of that. I would also add the fact that things can be up to date. Especially, I was noticing in 2021 and 2022, especially, we weren't really acknowledging the pandemic a lot in our textbooks. And when you're taking a science class, that's super important because that changed a lot of what we do, especially with some health sciences and things like that. So it's the ability for my instructor to keep those textbooks up to date, to bring in what's happening in the real world into the classroom. It makes it feel more relevant. And it also feels less isolated, like the classroom isn't this other world, that it's a part of the real world. So that was a big help for me. And that's a huge difference to me between the publisher and the OER.
Right. Well, thank you. So, I guess kind of a follow up, but a related question anyway, is just generally then, what other kind of benefits have you experienced using OER? You mentioned a few things about the avoiding kind of jargon, or I think someone on the faculty panel used the word bloat. That tends to be in some of these 500-page textbooks. I've seen some in my discipline that I'm like, I wouldn't use 15% of this book. But anyway, so I'm just thinking, other than, yeah, what are some other benefits that you've seen with the OER that you're using?
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that it's not just a curriculum that's tailored to the class, it's the actual textbook. I know in the past I've had, and that's kind of part of the bloat where it's kind of like, read chapter 7, units 2 through 4, whatever. And you just keep reading and then you're like, oh crap, I didn't need to know that. Pardon my language. So it saves time for sure. But it's also, there are typos everywhere. And when you pay for a book and there's a typo and obviously I'll notify the instructor like, hey, this is confusing. What does this mean? Is this a conflict or am I not understanding it? And then you email the publisher and then you hear back maybe a week later or never. But with a curriculum in a book that is developed by your instructor for your class, I think it's helpful for me to know that that's what this is because I can just email my instructor if I'm not clear on something. And either, maybe it is a typo, maybe I'm not understanding it right, but then they're aware of maybe what is not exactly clear in that book and they can update that in real time. So I think that's great.
I would say this platform is helping me in a lot of ways, and is one is because it's compliant. So what I mean by compliant is that it's responsive. Um, I don't see a lot of lag time in it. I don't see where it's like generating out the wrong answers or where I can't actually get through the problem. It has a breakdown. It also allows for us to try it like 99 times. Sometimes I get up there, but I just like the point that it's just very responsive. And so that's important to me because if I don't have a textbook, right, I'm like, okay, well, it's personable, but also it's like, I'm just trying to find the word that I'm trying to think of here. But it's personable to me, but also it makes me feel as if the system has been worked on, as if somebody cares. So not only the professor by creating this content, so it's nice to hear from you all the work that you're putting in, or even sometimes the challenges that you're facing, or maybe not even wanting to move forward. That makes me a little bit more comfortable because it lets me know that I'm not just paying for school. Because I'm going to tell you, at first I was like, well, this is kind of like YouTube University. But now I understand that it's important for the student, one, that you guys are putting a little extra hope, like a little extra into it. So that makes me just respect it a little bit more. But I like the point that it's just responsive and it just helps and it just continues to go over it and over and over it again. And then it will break it down every single step. So even though AI is great, the system also has a portion of AI in it that you can tell is operating together.
I think I really agree with that because I feel like, and it's something that I'm studying in a lot of my programs, is this idea of in this world of AI, how is education different? How is it changing? Can't I just learn everything through AI? And the answer is no, because we need that contact with the instructor. That's where the value comes in, is that contact, is those personal experiences, is learning from a person. I can read a textbook all on my own, but if I can share that experience with my classmates, share that experience with my teacher, that's where the value of education comes in. And I think sometimes we undersell that a little bit, especially when we do rely on publisher materials, because that's not personable. That's not building a relationship with somebody in the classroom and learning from their experience in the field. That's learning from a corporation, which is a very different experience. So I'd say that's one of the big benefits that I see, is that relationship.
All right. Well, thank you. So now is the time where we would like you to provide us with some advice, if you have any. And just thinking, generally speaking, for faculty or folks who are involved in some way or another in OER development in this room, or using it. What kind of advice might you have for them? What kind of feedback about the resources might you have? And please remember that we all are very open to criticism. So we would like to hear the truth.
I don't have any criticism. I think beyond, and I don't know that there's anything beyond what I've already said about just the quizzes being super helpful and just being able to take them over and over until I feel like I am ready. I think that would be like the most helpful thing for me personally as a student. But and I honestly, before today, had no idea how much work goes into this. So like I'm amazed, just everything I've heard today. I just want to thank everyone for all your hard work. Like it's almost makes me emotional. Like, oh my gosh, so much work has gone into this and I had no idea. And I'm glad I know now because I feel like I appreciate it a lot more.
I agree with you for sure. But before I even give my criticism, I just want to say thank you all for your hard work. I really appreciate you. It really makes me just want to take that extra step, like she said, to be sure that I'm taking advantage of every single resource that's available to me. But one thing that I would like to just say is, like, when we're creating those videos, me as a returning student, sometimes I may not have remembered what I did in math 150. Trust me, I took that a few times too. But I would just say in those instances, because we do have returning students, everyone may not be just like I'm just knocking this out, I'm getting this done. So whenever you are creating those videos, if you could just please just take a moment to remember that there's going to be more than one student that you're servicing, and that or teaching, I could say. But it would just be really helpful that the explanations maybe just give a little bit more background to it. I know that I'm in class, in math 212, but I'm like, hey, the derivative is kicking my tail, but I'm learning it. But if I just would have had just a little bit more background, maybe I wouldn't have had to spend as many hours studying. So I would just probably say that would probably be the number one piece of feedback that I have. But other than that, Thank you. I appreciate you.
I would say my biggest piece of advice is don't try and recreate the publisher. I feel like so often when we start an OER project, we start it from the table of contents of the existing book. And I would say look at where we are as students and what do we need that's different that the textbook isn't providing. Some of that's the relationship, some of that's the prior context, but sometimes that's just about what can we do differently to summarize, to break things down, but what can we do differently? What can we do better? And don't be afraid to really innovate, dive deep, and take risks and get messy and all that Miss Frizzle stuff. So
Okay, well, I think we have a good amount of time left. How much? Yeah, we have. So, if we wanted to open it up to questions from you all, because I'm sure some of you have some questions for our fantastic students here. So, who'd like to start? Yeah, actually, can you repeat what are some challenges learning and relearning material as a student that you've encountered along the way?
Um, I think it's really intimidating to start a new class, no matter what it is. I know every time I start a new class, I think there's no way I'm going to pass. I have no idea what any of this is talking about, and I'm pretty self motivated. But I think what helps me a lot is when professors reach out regularly, even if it's just like a form email. My professor this semester almost every week we'll send out an email saying, hey, it looks like you really mastered the material, or hey, it looks like you might need some extra help in these areas. And it makes me, because I'm not really seeing her ever, it reminds me that there's a person there and that they're there to help, so that helps me a lot.
So some of my challenges with being a Rio student, as we know that this is an online, primarily online. And so what happens is I don't know how many people is in my class with me. And so it would be nice, even though, the professor has, adjunct hours and different things like that, but it would be nice to see who's actually in the class because sometimes we can actually learn from our peers. And so that's like one of my biggest things because I'm looking like, there's only so much resources that tutoring has that they can help us with. But if we have access to our peers, and I think that sometimes we can meet up, sometimes we can pick each other's brains and just really try to figure out what is it that I'm missing or what is it that I know that you may know. So I think that that's probably my biggest challenge right now is that I need somebody that can relate to me with this math for sure.
I would say, thinking about sort of a course instead of the textbook, I would say kind of contextualizing all the resources because sometimes it can be a long list of resources and articles and all these different things, but maybe contextualizing what the reason is. Why am I reading this? What's the objective? What am I supposed to get out of this resource? Because sometimes it can look like a long list of links and that can be super challenging, especially if I have to leave and come back to look at materials. I can get real lost and not quite sure, okay, this resource is very similar to the last one. So what's the difference? Why were both of these included? That sort of a thing.
I'm assuming that in your courses you use both textual materials and video materials. Uh, which do you prefer? And can you speak to advantages and disadvantages to those kinds of materials, textual and video?
I do use both. The current course that I'm in uses both, and I do like the videos because I feel like when someone is speaking and explaining something and there are pictures, that helps me a lot. So having both at the same time and then being able to later go read and look and see. Um, some sometimes with the videos, and I know some of you can speed up, they seem a bit lengthy. So breaking them up into smaller chunks so you can digest in between different, um, you know, ideas, I think is really helpful for me.
I think that when it comes to textual versus videos, I'm going to always go with videos. And the reason why is like you said, you can either stop them or start them. But most importantly, you have people speaking in real terms. So if someone is in a, math 212 class, obviously they know what level you're on. They know exactly how you got there. So they're speaking your language. So that's always going to be better for me. But I also like the point of like with the textual, and more, for example, the professor has the chance to summarize exactly what the chapter is. So you'll sometimes read a summary in a textbook and it's just like going over all of these different things. And you're just like, all right, I hope that I learn it within the chapter. But when they give that summary, or even when they're just speaking, like I said, it's just a matter of meeting the student where they are. So I'm going to always say that the videos are great. Um, Even if the professor is not on more, I would probably say maybe still create some, and it just puts it a little bit in real terms for us. So
I would also say I tend to lean towards the videos because they do end up being more succinct, and also with a full-time job and my theater and all of the other stuff that I'm involved in, it's really difficult for me to carve out 45 minutes to an hour to just sit and stare at paper. A lot of times I'll actually use a screen reader to make it into sort of a podcast episode that I can listen to as I'm driving to work or commuting somewhere. But it's about that accessibility as well, of making sure that if we have videos, do we have captions? Do we have summaries of those? Are we really thinking about all of the ways that we're accessing things? Textbooks can be universally accessible, but accessibility goes beyond just ability, and sometimes it's about that time as well. So are they succinct enough that we can actually get something out of them in the time that we've got?
Thank you. This is really very helpful. How about, like, I don't know if your textbooks have them, but a lot of press books or open textbooks have some interactive activities in the textbooks. If they have them and you've been using them, are they useful for you? And I'm just asking for a friend because I'm right now an instructional designer, so I work with faculty, and when building those interactive activities can be very, very time consuming, and they never know, are the students using them? Is it helpful? Can you talk a little bit about that?
I love an interactive activity. It definitely keeps me engaged. I think it's interesting. It's kind of a break from just reading or watching a video. Um, I do think they help me learn quite a bit. So I have had some this semester, and I was like, I want more. Yeah.
yeah, I actually have a class that has an appendix where it would allow for us to do the activity. And sometimes I do think that it's helpful because it gives us step by step by step, especially when we're thinking about technology. Not all of us are, savvy in that. And so I like the point of having it either before or end of the chapter because it is really helpful, especially when it's step by step, because then it allows for us to do our homework successfully.
I would say 100% yes, please more. Thank you for building those. It's it helps me to stay engaged because, again, sometimes you're reading that textbook and it's a really great way of going to sleep. But you get to the activity and it's like, oh, suddenly I feel challenged, like, oh, this is a game, I can beat this. And as a Quizlet kid who I would take key terms and I would put all this stuff into Quizlet and it would give me that rocket ship game where, oh, hey, match the two defining terms. That was something that I grew up with and I loved those games. And it really helped me to feel engaged and it didn't feel boring. It added some excitement to it. So thank you for building those. Please do more.
I just want to go back to that video question again. What would you say is the optimal amount of time for a podcast or a video for you to work within your schedules?
I have really enjoyed some of the videos that are like 5 to 7 minutes, just in little chunks. And that way, if I have more time, I can watch more. But sometimes you only have a few minutes, or you also have to get other things done with the reading and stuff like that. So having shorter videos, especially if you need to go back and watch something again, you're not sifting through 30 minutes of where was that. So yeah, I'd say 5 to 7 minutes.
I probably would say about 10 minutes or so. Yeah, I would say maximum because like you said, you don't want to just like try to find the key points. But I know that also with these YouTube videos or wherever you're loading them, it does have an option where you could actually say like, hey, this is the introduction. This is where we start, whatever topic. So I think that those things are helpful as well, is just integrating, if it will be a long form or, different things like that, just maybe integrating where does the conversation shift. And I think that it wouldn't be a matter of how much time that we have, but basically what is the point or what is it that we need to go back and revisit.
I think if I'm being 100% honest, I think it depends on how intentional the video addresses the topic. Sometimes I've watched videos that are 5 minutes that could be a minute. And sometimes I've watched 10-minute videos that really should be more like 30 minutes. So I think it depends on how intentional we are when we use that time. And again, that those bookmarks in YouTube are, I cannot stress enough how helpful those are when I'm going back and reviewing stuff. But I'd say for me, probably ideally about, yeah, that 5 to 10 minute mark for the videos. Podcasts, I feel like those could be longer. Those could be closer to 30 minutes just because I can do my dishes while I'm doing that. I can walk the dog or I can drive to work. So that requires less of my focus on reading slides and listening to a voice. But again, it's all about how do we fill that time and are we intentional about it?
So, Jessica, I've known you for so many years, and I am privileged to always get to hear your story. But Jakara and Sarah, I haven't had a chance to know you yet. Um, for the two of you, learning about open educational resources is new to you, and Jessica's known for a while. But how has this experience today possibly changed your future academic journey?
I will definitely be looking for courses that offer OE resources. Not just because of the cost savings, but knowing the work that the professor has put into the class, it does feel more personal. So I am really grateful for all the work and this event today. Yeah, it's been very eye opening for me.
Believe that this has made me hopeful that I can actually get to the finish line, that I can actually complete not only an associate's degree, but continue education because of the open form, or, I don't want to be technical, but because of the system that's being put in place. But most importantly, just seeing decision makers and people that actually care be here in the room and be open and interested to how can you make this experience better. That just, I'm a relationship person or a relational person. And so that means a lot to me because it's like, you know what, now I feel like I could probably find more people to go to and be like, hey, well, what's the next class? Or, like, how can I help even more? So to be honest, like, school was looking a little shaky this semester too, but now I feel like I'll go back and I'll just appreciate the platform just a little bit more, put a little bit more intentionality into me actually learning and what the professor had to say instead of just like, oh, this was boring, or, it's kind of nonchalant. It just gives it a little bit more of like, like listen to what they have to say because they're working hard to make sure that we know.
I don't know. Oh, yes, it is. Okay. So, Jessica, you mentioned using Quizlet as one of the tools you've used for learning. And so I'm curious for all of you if there's other external learning tools that we can use. And I'm a librarian, so I recommend things to other students all the time. What kind of external learning tools do you use to supplement the tools that faculty provide?
I have found a few websites where I think it has been other students that have created quizzes, especially on anatomy. That's really helpful, but I don't always 100% trust it, and it's not always consistent with um, the material that's in the course. So I would definitely. I am also curious about this, and would love a professor's suggestion, like, hey, if you want to quiz yourself more, head here.
Well, at the moment, I don't actually use anything outside of the course just because, I'm not trying to get caught for like plagiarism or, or any of those things. So I just literally just use like the tutoring. I'll use the online library that it has. I'll use, I think it's another tutor. It's like you can either tutor with Rio tutors or with an online source as well. So I feel as if there's enough resources that you all provide for us to be successful in the course, if I'm just being honest. And it works for me, so happy with it.
Okay, this is like my favorite topic ever. So I would say probably the number one tool that I use is Notebook LM. It's a Google tool, but I'm able to upload my textbook chapters or articles into it, and I can ask it questions, and it'll give me and show me in the textbook where it talks about this. It'll also help me with citations. You can have an audio summary, so it'll have two AI podcasters who are oddly realistic. They'll go back and forth talking about a summary of everything. So as I'm going to study for my final exams, I have all of those short podcasts so I can go back and review all the key points. You can ask it to make a study guide. You can ask it to make quiz questions. It's phenomenal. I would not survive masters without this.
Well, we have a couple of minutes left, and I wanted to see if there were any questions from the folks who are participating online. Is there anything that's come up? Well, feel free to, in the next 90 seconds or so, add one. I think that one question that I had, and this is based on the faculty panel and something that we hadn't really brought up in preparation for this discussion, so feel free to just decline, to answer. But one of the things that a lot of people in open education recently have, not just recently, but for a while now, have really been focusing on is this idea of involving students in the co-creation of learning materials. So I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that as a concept, without getting into too much of the nitty-gritty of what it means or whatever, but just the general idea being, rather than just giving you materials to remember and whatnot and receiving it, like, what do you think about the idea of kind of co-creating the content itself of the courses?
I think that's a really cool idea. I think everyone learns differently. Um, and there are different learning styles, but if I had some kind of say on how something was structured, I think it'd be really helpful for me. I think it'd be helpful for a lot of people who, especially neurodivergent students. I think it would make a huge difference for them.
I think that that would be great. And the reason why is because there's something called know your audience. And so if you know exactly who you're training or who you're teaching, it just makes it makes the job less hard for you on the back end. Now, I'm not saying like ask students that has never taken the course, but potentially the students that you've seen do well, maybe get some feedback from them. And I know that some of you were saying that you do that already. And then also maybe the students that didn't do so well, what was the pain points there? But again, just knowing your audience and just maybe seeing what sections and different things like that where, it probably did great and some of them did not so great. I think that it overall just helps all of us because we're all people. So it's all going to take a team effort for us to be able to reach one common goal, and that's to get more students educated. So
I would say for me, my OER journey started on a panel like this and led to being a co-creator on some projects. And for me, it's been a journey of learning more about a lot of different subjects. And I feel like in the classroom, when I've been able to help contribute in that way, it's been about building curiosity, because sometimes we have to take classes that we have to take and maybe we wouldn't have signed up for on our own. So by giving us moments to spark that curiosity and to work with other students and to really feel like we're taking ownership of the learning experience, it can feel less like, oh, we just have to go get through this course, and more, hey, I have an opportunity here. Yeah.
I guess maybe we have time for one last question. Oh,
Okay, so the other day, a neurodivergent student came to me after modern drama, which you know very much about, and said, I can't get through these plays. It would be so great if I could have someone read them to me. And I that day linked the LibriVox audiobooks to, and I was like, you just changed the face of this course forever. And she just looked at me really shy and she was like, really? And I said, yeah, you did. You just changed it. Revolutionized my modern drama class. I'm going to share it with the IC too. So yeah.
Your library might also have recordings of some of the plays. So go look and see if they've got recordings of the plays so they can watch the actors.
All right. Well, I guess let's just end this with an additional round of applause for fantastic panelists. Thank you very much for everything.